Before we deep dive into this video, I just want to say that I've gone and done and made some merch. It's over at Redbubble and I've only got a few designs at the moment just to see how this whole process goes. But there's stuff like shirts, phone cases, aprons, and a lot more. And no worries if you're not interested, there's absolutely no obligation to go check it out. With that being said, let's jump into the video. Welcome back to the series in which I read a bunch of one-shots chosen by a random one-shot generator, as I am too indecisive myself to choose what I want to read. There's a link to the generator in the description if you want to give it a try yourself. With that being said, let's jump straight in. Starting off with Lemons. Before I verbalize my review on this, I just want to point out this is one of the hardest ones that I had to find out of the list I'm about to go through. But nonetheless, when I did start it, damn was it a beautiful first page. As mentioned before when describing Sazan and Comic Girl, I am an absolute sucker for watercolor art, so I was immediately drawn into this manga visually. The story is beautifully heartwarming and follows two women who share a kiss during their high school era and then go on to work in the same office later in their lives, not knowing how to react to one another as adults. It took a deep dive into roller coasters of emotion that the main protagonist, Chika, goes through when discovering her true feelings. And the love showcased in this one-shot felt genuine and real, dodging the typical romance trope of the love being just predictable between the two characters. I definitely recommend this, so I'd give this 8 lemons out of 10. Following Lemons is Sanbante Heroine no Sonogo, a drama school life romance with a total of 63 pages. I found this story to be a delightful spin on the typical plot of a delinquent high school girl attempting to win over the popular boy who's continuously surrounded by followers. It did remind me of being in secondary school when girls would figure out high-level strategies to win over someone's heart, but then that someone just wanted a person who was just chill. The author was very self-aware of how mangas like this go, and during this story it had the main protagonist break down the situation as if it was a typical high school romance manga. It was a cheeky bit of fourth wall breaking, and it was quite nice. I found the art to be pleasantly legible throughout, and there was behind the scenes bonus panels at the end of the story, including a variety of character concept art. But overall, 7.5 out of 10. The third manga I read as part of this video was Misa Chan, a 9-page one-shot written by Yu Ichimiya, the same author as Children and Doom. As I started, I thought this was going to be a typical one-shot of a sad husband who had grown bored and tired of his family life, but boy was I wrong. This slice of life had a massive twist that I wasn't expecting, but I won't spoil it if you're planning on reading it yourself. Just know that it was a pretty big kick in the teeth that made me want to indulge more in this story, but I was saddened to know that it was just one shot. The art style was very reminiscent of Oh My Sweet Alien, which is one of my more favourite art styles in manga. There's something so captivating about having a soft character contrasted with highly detailed expressions and eyes. So overall, 8.5 out of 10, and I look forward to reading other work from this author. Our fourth randomly generated one-shot is Itsuka Zero ni Naru, roughly translated into Someday It Will Be Zero. It was a 16-page manga following a young high school student who is always happy to give his stuff away, until a girl notices that he's giving almost too much away, to the point where it's his own detriment. This one-shot showcases how sometimes the most generous people are often the ones who are the most lonely in their lives. And it really hits you in the feels, and it has a really bittersweet feeling by the end of it. The artist made each panel feel super impactful with its rich, contrasting aesthetic. So overall, it's a sweet slice of life story that I'd score 7 out of 10. Now we have Cavalier of the Bloody Eclipse. An excellent title that flows off the tongue, however I do have contrasting opinions about the contents of this one-shot. It was a long one-shot at that, totaling at 68 pages. To summarize the artwork, it had a very scratchy aesthetic, making it difficult to identify the characters and preventing a smooth flow of action. Narratively, it was an uninteresting tale of werewolves versus vampires versus monster slayers. And there were a few captivating plot twists along the way, but as I became rapidly disinterested in the plot, the shock factor just wasn't there for me. I wouldn't really recommend this because it was so incredibly dull. This is getting a full Monster Slayers out of 10. It may be my fault my best friend's breasts got bigger. What? Now hear me out. Despite the obscure title, there is a lot of sentiment behind this story. It's a 35-page one-shot with the categories of comedy, ecchi, drama, romance, and supernatural. You could definitely tell that this was created by Reiji Saga, the creator of Succubus and Thereafter, with their signature aesthetic of balancing rich, sharp strokes with the delicate, soft level of detail. Not to mention, their delivery of character development was spectacular. The two main protagonists of the story were Yamato and Honoka. Looking past the ridiculous premise, these two characters deliver the sentiment of potential consequences of stress-related illnesses when they go unnoticed or ignored. It was definitely not what I was expecting from the cover, but I thoroughly enjoyed the storytelling and the gripping art style. And much like Succubus and Thereafter, if this had a physical book, it would go straight on my shelf. So in total, it's getting an 8.5 out of 10. Number 7 is Enma, a 58-page supernatural action shonen written by Maho Okino. To summarize, this follows Kochiro, a fighter in Hades who displays intense powers fighting a lost soul. He's the first person in 20 years to take an exam to become an Enma elite, so he's paired with an unpopular character called Chizuru, also known as the Demon of the Intelligence Department. The flow of this one-shot was very difficult to follow, therefore it was extremely challenging to determine the identity of each character, and I felt like the narrative was so generic within the action space, it was so hard to be engaged because everything was just so predictable. And if I had to compare it to anything, imagine if someone was explaining the first arc of Bleach, but they'd watched it when it first aired, but it was on a second monitor and they haven't consumed anything from Bleach since. It's obscure, I know, but it's the closest I could figure out. And much like Cavalier and the Bloody Eclipse, I wouldn't recommend this. And I'd even rank this worse at a 2.5 out of 10. Now we have Garaku, a 31-page one-shot tagged with action, gore, and crime. It follows the city of Garaku, a city of frequent murderers, delinquents, and a mysterious old gentleman who always sits on a park bench holding his beloved katana. I appreciated the fact that this story follows the elder gentleman without having any pages dedicated to his backstory or his current living conditions. He is a mystery and will always remain a mystery. The sketch art style and the grounded tone of this one-shot had me thinking a lot about the work of Fujimoto. If anything, I found that more emotion would be portrayed in stuff like Chainsaw Man and Look Back if the art style looked more like this one-shot, but that's just my personal opinion. And I just want to highlight that this had a super sick fourth wall breaking panel. You don't see many of these moments in manga where a blade was literally swung so cleanly that it cut through a character's speech bubble. Like, that was sick. Additionally, there were a few panels in this one-shot that had a first-person perspective, which was another innovative art choice that not many mangas have achieved before. It was like I was reading Hardcore Henry. Like, could you imagine if a manga was exclusively first-person? It would be so cool. And this is an excellent example of what good shonen action looks like, rather than whatever Enma tried to display to me. It wasn't until after I researched further into this one-shot that I realized that it was written by Yuto Suzuki, the same author as Sakamoto Days. This definitely explains why the action and gore is fantastically sickening. So I'm happily slapping this with an 8.5 out of 10. Our next generated one-shot was Asaoka High School Baseball Team Journal, a comedy slice of life with a total of 34 pages. It follows a group of high school students striving to maintain their baseball club, which they hold near and dear to their hearts. It was very reminiscent of Slam Dunk, but in a one-shot format, but rather than the students playing basketball, this time it's baseball, which I know even less about. In both Slam Dunk and this one-shot, you really get the feeling that this is a team playing the sport, rather than a group of individuals who just coincidentally share the same interests. Secondly, you really get the feeling that each member looks out for one another without even having to say a single word. And the final comparison is the art. Though this was published in 2011, it has the aesthetics of a 1980s manga, allowing the opportunity for readers to feel nostalgic when thinking back to their time playing high school sports. And despite being 34 pages, the author did an excellent job of fleshing out the depth of each character while explaining the history within this narrative. Overall, pretty good, and a handful of humorous moments, but at a high level it didn't engage me as much as Slam Dunk, so a 6.5 out of 10. Last but very not least is Kuzukago Mountain, a one-shot written by Niso-sin and illustrated by Yuji Iwasaki. It follows a young repair enthusiast, Poi, that lives on a mountain filled with items people throw away, from newspapers to humans. One day she discovers an ambulance with a one-armed man living inside. This story follows their brief adventures with one another. It was a heartwarming tale of rebirthing passion and sharing it with ones who actually care. The art style was relatively similar to The Promised Neverlands, and I love the narrative potential of each and every inhabitant of Kuzukago Mountain. I would be fascinated to know more of the culture and the characters that live inside this harmonious space, and I found it humorous that the Doctor was also called Doctor Doctor. So much like some of the other one-shots in this list, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. Alas, we have reached the end. Those have been the 10 random one-shots that I read from a random one-shot generator. I hope you found some interesting recommendations or just enjoyed the obscurity that comes with reading unknown one-shots. Who knows where this obscure one-shot journey will take us in the future? Maybe genre specific? Who knows? Either way, thanks for watching and also go check out the merch. Okay, bye!